All right, everybody. We are back after a lot of time away since the NFL draft. I have not been live on TikTok or YouTube, but we are back today as we get close to the NFL season and the college football season. So I hope that you'll join me today as we talk about some of the things that are coming up in college football and in the NFL as we look forward to what should be incredible seasons for both. I was looking this morning. We are not very far away from some really big games in college football with week one basically a month away. We've got the Hall of Fame game tomorrow night between the Chargers and the Lions. And while I know the NFL preseason certainly leaves a lot to be desired, there is a lot of excitement every time I get a chance to watch an NFL game. We get to see Trey Lance tomorrow night for the Chargers against the Lions team that won't be playing any starters, you would assume, or at least very little playing with the starters. But if the Lions are who we think they are going to be a team that will go deep this NFL season again, coming off a 15-win year. Probably could have been in the Super Bowl the last couple years with a few different breaks. So, anyways, we're back. So, super excited. My channel became really popular during college basketball season. I do a lot of bracketology. But this time of year is all about football, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So, again, I'd love it if you drop in, follow me. We're going to get this thing started back. I assume it's going to be a slow start as we get going here. But hopefully, slowly but surely, we will build back. And by the time the season gets going, we're going to have something fun to discuss. Very clear. It is very clear that DJ Lagway, is at least dealing with an ankle type injury. He's in a walking boot right now. If you've not heard. And yeah, I'm doing something new. I think I got it working. I saw that it had went off on the mic for some reason. Tell me if you've got audio. And I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, look, I've never shied away from saying that I'm a Florida Gators fan on this channel. DJ Lagway did not throw in the spring. Obviously was dealing with a shoulder injury then. Now he is in a walking boot. If I am a Florida fan, and I am, and I know there's a lot of Gators fans out there, I'm really concerned about this right now. He is the entire face of the program. Without DJ Lagway, this team is going nowhere. They play at LSU in 45 days. It feels like Billy Napier's immediate future is completely tied to Lagway and whether or not he can be the number one overall quarterback prospect that he was coming out of high school. I think the guy is absolutely unbelievable. There's a reason he's on the short list of Heisman candidates for this upcoming season. But the truth is, he's a year two player. It's not like he came in and started every single game last year. Graham Mertz was the starter early on. Then they went back and forth a little bit before Lagway took over when Mertz was out for the year. And yes, there were highlights. Florida was leading Georgia when Lagway got hurt. There were a lot of things that were looking good when Lagway was the starter. Florida did not lose when he finished the game last year. All of those things are great. No question about it. But the truth is, this is a year two player who still needs to develop rapport with his receivers. There are some new guys. You got Michael Sturdivant coming over from UCLA. You've got Dallas Wilson, the five-star recruit who swapped from Oregon to Florida. You've got to develop those kind of rapport with the receivers in the offseason, this is the time of year to do that. And if Lagway is not able to take part in drills, I am definitely worried if I'm Billy Napier. Florida probably plays the hardest schedule in the country. It is, you go to LSU and Miami early on in the year. You've got Texas coming to town in October, which will be probably the biggest home game in the Swamp this year. Then they go to A&M. They have the neutral game against Georgia. Kentucky has been a real problem for Florida the last 5 years or so, even though Florida beat them pretty good last year. Then they go to Ole Miss. I'm sure that the fans in Oxford will remember that Florida ended the Rebels' playoff hopes last season, and then they play Tennessee. It is still weird to have that game in November instead of in the third week of September, and then they play Florida State to end the year. So, yeah, I'm really concerned if I'm a Gators fan about DJ Lagway. I do not think that this is something that is just minor, even though they say it's minor. I think this is a big deal just because he's missing out on the timing with his receivers. Oh, and good question. I think Trey Lance, if you're talking about the Hall of Fame game, I think with Trey Lance starting, he should be able to move the ball on some backups for the Lions, right? You would think that Trey Lance would be able to complete some passes and get the Chargers offense moving, so you'd have to like the Chargers, I think, based on that alone. Is Hendon Hooker playing? I don't know. I don't know if he is, but I really want to see him play. I think he missed the entire preseason last year, right, for the Lions. So it'll be interesting to see how much he plays tomorrow too. I think Hooker and Kyle Allen are going to play tomorrow for the Lions. So hey, maybe he comes in and balls out. We were wondering if he was going to take Jared Goff's job, right? When I mean, not that he was going to take it right away, but that eventually over a couple years when he got drafted, that might happen. So question. All right, I got it fixed, Cassius. Yeah, listen. I'm trying something new, and I've got to get the microphone working every time I change pictures here. So that'll be something I'll work on. I appreciate you letting me know. So what I was saying is with this kid from App State, Joey Aguilar, who has come in and is the quarterback for Tennessee, or whether it's going to be Jake Merklinger or whoever ends up being the quarterback for the Vols this year. They have a very manageable schedule. They do go to Bryant Denny. They go to the Swamp. But there are a lot of things for Tennessee that's going their way after losing Nico Iamaleava. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they manage the schedule and how they manage the quarterbacks. This is a team that we thought had their quarterback for at least this year, maybe next year, and would be a national contender. Now without Nico, who went on to UCLA, and that situation played out in real time on TikTok for me, it's going to be very interesting to see how Tennessee manages the quarterbacks. Because I think if you get that situation wrong, if you're Josh Heupel, then you could very, very quickly fall back into a loaded SEC. So I would say that if I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm very concerned about that at this point. I want to talk about Thomas Castellanos and his comments. I made a video about this maybe a month ago. If you haven't seen this, the former Boston College quarterback, now Florida State starting quarterback, kind of called out Alabama. He said, "I'm not sure that Alabama can stop me." Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. And, I just don't know. This is a kid that is super talented. I know the nation watched him last year with Bill O'Brien and Boston College knock off Florida State. The Noles had already lost to Georgia Tech at that point. This was their second loss to Boston College. It was really unexpected. I think it was a Monday night game, maybe Labor Day night. And he had a great game. But a few weeks later, he had kind of fallen out of favor with the staff there. And Cassius, listen, I think going back to Joey, I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good player. The question is, how is he going to handle the swap to the SEC? So, but with Castellanos, this was a guy who was super talented and fell out of favor at Boston College. Ended up separating, leaving. Now he's kind of moved up the totem pole. Now he's a starting quarterback at Florida State. But we all know that this is not the Florida State team that we've seen from years past, even the one 2 years ago that went undefeated. This is a 2-10 program that, was lucky to get 2 wins last year. They fell off the face of the earth, and it's a huge year for Mike Norvell. And now you've got your starting quarterback who just waltzed into campus, who is calling out big bad Alabama, who again, yes, Nick Saban isn't there. But how's it going, Birds? How's it going, man? I think that I laughed. I laughed when I read his comments. I mean, I don't know if you're Mike Norvell how you react to that. I'm sure he had some sleepless nights. I just don't understand, given where this program is, why, no matter who you are, whether you were there or not, whether you were the quarterback that beat them last year and you think you're going to come in and everything's going to be great, or whether you were on the roster last year, why you would come in and call out Alabama. And I think he's kind of stepped back and said he didn't call them out, but you can read the quote for yourself. That's how it was taken. I'm sure it's all over the locker room in Tuscaloosa. And now Doak Campbell is going to see Alabama waltz in there. And I just don't think that you make them matter. I don't think that you give an Alabama team that probably underachieved last year more to look forward to playing a team that they probably should beat in week 1. I don't know. I think Castellanos is going to have a good year. But I just don't know. I don't know that I would have said what he has to say. Bird, so I'm doing something different today. I'm doing this through Restream, so I don't even know how I would add you. I don't even know how I'd add you. I'd have to, I've got to do some research here. So I definitely appreciate everybody jumping on and hanging out with me. Had this thing rolling a lot in the spring and kind of went away. My kids have been home for the summer. And so I just said, you know what? There's no way. I can't do it right now. got a new microphone, got a new webcam, and just getting back into it for football season. So trying to get live on YouTube and TikTok and some other stuff. Yeah. Does it look better? That's the question. Does it look better or worse? That's the question. So give me some feedback as I'm kind of playing around on it. I'm definitely trying to do some different things. So y'all bear with me. Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. So gonna keep going. All right, the microphone's back. Listen, I don't know if you guys have seen Matthew Stafford with this back injury. I have a buddy, a good friend, who is a big Los Angeles Rams fan. Matthew Stafford is not practicing right now, and he's in his upper 30s. Obviously, Devonta Adams just came over. This is a Rams team that gave the Eagles everything they wanted last year in the playoffs. They were probably the closest team to beating the Eagles last year. The Chiefs were not close. The Commanders were not really close. So really the Rams, you could argue, were the second best team in the NFC by the time we got to January last year. And now Stafford isn't practicing. Now, look, it is July 30th. We're talking about a guy who has been in the NFL for a long time now, 15 years or so that Matthew Stafford has been in the league and is playing with Sean McVay. These guys have got it together, right? We know that. But is this going to be a lingering injury for a Rams team that really thinks it's Super Bowl or bust? You know, you got Puka Nacua, you've got Adams, you got Stafford. You kind of have everything in place, a young defense with a lot of pieces. So to me, it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage the Matthew Stafford injury. You know, there are a lot of these veterans out there that practice once or twice a week. They don't need to practice and take all the snaps. But the Rams aren't really saying a lot. They're just saying that he's got back soreness. They're saying that there really is no timeline. They're going week to week. You know, we're really not that far away from the NFL season starting. We're really not. I mean, we're talking about, 40 days? I don't even know if it's that long. Cowboys and Eagles play the opener on a Thursday night. I'm a big Cowboys fan. I can't wait for that one. But I know we're looking maybe 40 days. Again, the Hall of Fame game is tomorrow night. Cowboys-Eagles is September 4th. So the Rams have got a few days after that. So 36 days. So, yeah, it may be exactly 40 days, actually. What are the odds of that guess? So, I would be pretty concerned if I'm a Rams fan at this point. Not because I think that this back soreness is going to keep Matthew Stafford from, starting week one, but I would just worry about it being a lingering injury as you move forward. All right, we're gonna talk about my Cowboys for a minute. I delayed it as long as I could, but I feel like we got to talk about the Cowboys O-line with Tyler Guyton. The line built by Tyler is what I'm calling it. You got all those Tylers after they drafted Tyler Booker. You've got Tyler Smith, and now you got Tyler Guyton. The original thought was that Guyton had torn his ACL. When I saw that, I was I don't know. I was already mourning the season, man. I thought it was over. I was like, look, this is all they need. This is all they need. Just another problem. They've already got to figure out how to stop Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, which they haven't been able to do very well over the last year. But at least it's not an ACL injury. It's a bone fracture. So he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. He may play in week one. Which would be great for the Cowboys. But this is a team that has so many problems, so many holes. You don't know who the running back's going to be. Is it going to be Javonte Williams? Is it going to be Miles Sanders? If we were talking about this running back room 5 years ago, we would say, man, what a great running back room. They've got these, Miles Sanders is one of the best in the league. Javonte Williams is an up-and-coming star. And now we're talking about them like, man, they're over the hill. They're both washed up. Nobody else wanted them, and that's why they're in Dallas. So, you got to have the guys up front. Zach Martin's no longer there. You've got to get these guys in line. You got to have them out on the practice field. Dak Prescott was horrible last year before the injury. You know, I know a lot of NFL fans and a lot of Dallas fans, frankly, look back and say, well, Dak was hurt. That's why the season was so bad. No, the Cowboys were going nowhere fast last year. Dak Prescott was second in the MVP voting 2 years ago. I do think people forget that fact. He knows how to play quarterback. But last year he played horrible. He played absolutely terrible. And that was before the injury. So now you have these O-line problems. The Cowboys have had another offensive lineman go down as well. So, you know, Guyton is out. You really got to have, you know, Booker was a little bit of a surprise as a first-round draft pick. I do understand it. I think it made sense. But this is a team that I don't know has really gotten better running the ball. I think George Pickens is a huge get to help CeeDee Lamb get open. But I really don't know if this team has taken a huge step, you know, compared to last year. And now you have one of your key pieces hurt in Tyler Guyton. And hopefully he's going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks. Hopefully he's going to be back for week 1 when they go to Philadelphia on Thursday night, because I think the Cowboys are going to be in trouble without him. I really do. All right, I want to jump back to college here for a minute, because there's been a lot of talk about Nick Saban possibly returning to coaching. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it all started on a radio show in Tuscaloosa. One of his former quarterbacks said that that Saban, he'd be surprised if he's not back coaching soon. And I was trying to find the exact comment. Greg McElroy, that's who I thought said it. I didn't want to give McElroy the credit for saying this if it wasn't him, but it was. It was. And he said he had heard from someone in the know that Saban might not be done coaching. You know, and when the Cowboys had an open coaching job earlier this year, I had kind of joked. I had made a TikTok video that mentioned Saban as a possible candidate. And it was completely a joke. I didn't think that Nick Saban would want that job. I don't think the Cowboys wanted him to have that job. But Nick Saban, I am pretty sure, is done coaching, guys. I would love to hear what other people think about this in the comments. But Nick Saban is 73 years old. He had the best job in college football at Alabama. I lived very close to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for much of my life. A lot of people I know and are considered great friends are Alabama fans. That is the wildest fan base in all of college football. It is absolutely insane. This is a true story. I know people are going to think I'm making this up. One of my best friends in high school, and I'm in my mid-30s now, he was at the 2007 Alabama-Louisiana Monroe game, which was Nick Saban's first year at Alabama. And he didn't get to go to many games. His family didn't have a lot of money. So cheap tickets, go watch Louisiana Monroe. Alabama wasn't great that year. And he called me after the game from Bryant-Denny Stadium. He was still there. I don't think he'd left his seat yet. Louisiana Monroe had just stunned the Tide. And he said, they're chanting in front of me, "Fire Saban. Fire Saban." And he's like, I don't know what to think. I can't believe what I just watched. There was a time very shortly after that game where Saban had just failed with the Dolphins. He'd gone to Tuscaloosa and had lost to Louisiana Monroe in a subpar first year, where people questioned Nick Saban at Alabama. Now, that changed very quickly, obviously. They were number one in the country most of the next season before they lost to Florida and Tim Tebow. But I'll tell you this. All those friends that were crazy, they were tired of seeing the Tide lose, hadn't been to a championship game since 92. You know, the Sean Alexander days in the late 90s were great, but they were not what Alabama football was used to being under Paul Bear Bryant. And there was a time where, you know, people were just fed up, and Saban changed that. Nobody was questioning Nick Saban or the Alabama football program anymore. Nobody was questioning Nick Saban after they lost to Michigan in the college football playoff. You know, there were whispers, there were rumors that maybe he had lost his touch, right? That maybe, just maybe, he had been called up to by his assistants. He had finally lost to to an assistant. Those kind of things that had never happened before. But nobody was really questioning this man. And for that fan base, which is, again, the absolutely wildest one in all of college football, trust me, if you have not been to Bryant-Denny Stadium in the fall, if you haven't been on a Saturday in October or September, November, when Alabama's playing a big game, then you haven't experienced college football the way it truly should be experienced. And I've been to probably 10 to 12 games at Bryant-Denny over the years, some really big ones. If Saban walked away from that, if he retired from that, knowing that he had taken Alabama to the top, he could get every 5-star he wanted, and I understand the NIL and all of that. But if that was a problem at Alabama, he's not going to – I don't see how he would ever take that on somewhere else. Why? Why would you? I don't think he has anything to prove in the NFL. You know, he's talked about the Drew Brees situation, where if he had been able to sign Drew Brees, which he wanted to, who knows? I mean, look at what Drew Brees did with the New Orleans Saints. Are you going to tell me that Drew Brees and Nick Saban couldn't have figured it out in the NFL? I believe it could have happened. My dad is a huge Dolphins fan. He's in his late 50s. And he will tell you that Nick Saban ruined the Dolphins. But the truth is the Dolphins were ruined well before Nick Saban, and they still have a long ways to go. So, no, I don't see this happening before. I have a lot of respect for Greg McElroy, and I'm sure it was a great source. I mean, who knows? If anybody would be close to Saban, it would be Greg McElroy. I know Saban has come out and has kind of, quelled this rumor a little bit as well, but I just don't see it, guys. At 73, on top of the world in the SEC, I just don't see it. I don't understand why he would come back. I do want to talk a little bit more about SEC football for a minute while we're on the subject of the SEC again here. The media came out with their predicted order of finish the other day for the SEC. And I don't know if you guys have seen this. I know that it has been a couple weeks, so there's a good chance that you probably have. And Texas is the favorite. Texas is the favorite. With Arch Manning at quarterback. Steve Spurrier had some interesting things to say about Arch the other day. He said, hey, if Arch was so good, why didn't he start last year over Quinn Ewers? Why didn't he start over Quinn Ewers, who was a late-round pick in the NFL draft? I found that interesting. I do think Arch Manning is going to be really, really good. I think that Texas being the favorite in the SEC is a little disrespectful to Georgia. And now I understand that Georgia wasn't quite as good last year. But, man, doesn't it feel like this is still Kirby Smart's conference right now? It does to me. It definitely does to me. And I understand that Gunnar Stockton has some questions to answer. He obviously led the Bulldogs in the playoffs last year. But they lost to Notre Dame. I don't know. It just feels like Georgia's probably the team to beat. This is a Bulldogs team that has an interesting schedule. They play at Tennessee in Knoxville on September 13th. 2 weeks later, they host Alabama and Bryant-Denny. That was an incredible game last year that Ryan Williams won with that final minute touchdown grab after Georgia had come back and taken the lead. They also play at Auburn in October. Never know what you're going to get out of Auburn. You play Florida and Jacksonville, and they host Texas. To me, hosting Texas, hosting Alabama would make Georgia the favorite in this conference. LSU, there's so much hype for LSU this year. To me, I think LSU and Florida early on will determine whether or not they're contenders when Florida plays in Baton Rouge on September 13th. Cassius, you like Alabama over Georgia? Yeah, listen, comment and tell me. One of these days I'm going to figure this out where I can bring you guys up, but I'd love to hear why you think that, because I think that with Ty Simpson at quarterback and some other questions there for Alabama, I am definitely questioning whether Alabama might take a little bit of a step back this year. Now, I know everybody is expecting it. The Saban effect, is in full force in all of our minds, thinking, well, maybe they're a little bit more susceptible this year. Maybe a year out, they don't have Jalen Milroe now. Is this the year for them to take a little bit of a step back? Now, I know Ryan Williams is still there as a sophomore. He is going to be maybe the best player in college football again this year. Absolutely incredible freshman year. You've got Jan Miller at running back. You've got some really good players coming back on both sides of the ball. But this is a team that goes to Doak Campbell to play Florida State, and I do think they're going to beat the Noles. They play Wisconsin, then they go to Georgia 2 weeks later. They play at Missouri. Missouri's got a pretty favorable schedule, guys. I'll get to Missouri in a second, but if you haven't seen the Tiger schedule, this is it's going to be a lot different. They're going to have a chance to really to win a lot of games. It's going to be a lot different than what some of these other teams at the top of the SEC are playing. So we'll talk about Missouri in a second. By the way, they're number 12 on this list. But Alabama, that trip to Missouri, then they play Tennessee the next week, then South Carolina, then LSU. Now they have a break between South Carolina and LSU. But if you look at that 3-game stretch, and again, Georgia's before that. I'm also skipping over Vanderbilt, who beat the Tide last year. But that 3-game stretch at Missouri, Tennessee, and at South Carolina seems pretty important for Alabama, especially with LSU and Oklahoma coming up later. And they also go to Jordan-Hare to play Auburn. And every time Alabama plays in Jordan-Hare, they have a chance to lose. I don't care what Hugh Freeze and the Tigers have this year. Alabama always struggles a little bit when they go to Jordan-Hare Stadium. So, Florida man, how's it going, man? How's it going? Good to see you in the comments. South Carolina, man, they might be the most overhyped team in the country right now. And I don't have anything against Lenora Sellers. I have a friend who went to South Carolina, is a absolutely huge Gamecocks fan, and Sellers is unreal as a sophomore. I just wonder how good this team is going to be again. They were red hot down the stretch last year. They beat the brakes off Oklahoma. They beat Texas A&M by 4 touchdowns. They beat Vanderbilt by 21, which is really saying something when you consider what Alabama did. They beat the Missouri team that I want to talk about. They beat Clemson. But when you look at their earlier games, they lost a close one to Alabama. They really probably could have won that game, recovered an onside kick late. Lost by 2. They lost by 24 to Ole Miss. They lost a back-and-forth game to LSU. You could argue that team could have won 11 games last year. You really could. But I just wonder how South Carolina is going to handle success. I think it's one thing, and I know this sounds silly, but covering sports like I have for many years, it's almost easier at times to come from nowhere. When you don't have the expectations that you're going to be really, really good. You don't have the weight of the pressure. Now you have South Carolina as a top 15 team. This is a team that just missed out on the college football playoff last year, almost backdooring their way in, at the end of the year because they won so many games in a row. Look at that schedule. The Oklahoma game, that wasn't a game that College Game Day was at and that, the whole nation was watching. This was a 3-3 South Carolina team at the time. Oklahoma was not great last year. The A&M game, A&M was pretty good at that point in November. Vanderbilt, Missouri, the Missouri-South Carolina game was pretty good. I think both of those teams were ranked. But it wasn't a national game. It wasn't the focus of the country, one of the biggest games in the country that week. South Carolina is going to be in that situation this year. And you've got to wonder how the Gamecocks are going to handle that. Because it is very different being the team that sneaks up on everybody compared to the team that everybody is targeting. And I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle that. I really don't. And I honestly can't wait to see. I honestly can't wait to see. They go to Baton Rouge in October. They host Oklahoma, who I think is going to be much improved this year, with Jaden Ott at running back and some of the other pieces they have in place. They play Alabama. They get them in Columbia. Then they play at Ole Miss and at A&M. And then they host Clemson. So, there's a lot of games on this schedule that will be tough for South Carolina. They also open with Virginia Tech in Atlanta. So there will be a lot of hype around that neutral site game, even though I do not think Virginia Tech is going to be very good this year. We've already talked about Florida a little bit. I'm going to move past them. I do think Ole Miss and A&M are also interesting where they're slotted here. Birds, throw the prediction. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the prediction of the 6. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. I think Ole Miss and A&M are both going to be interesting. Both of those teams were at times playoff contenders last year. You got Marcel Reed back for A&M, super athletic. That kid is so fast. He can make plays with his legs. The question is, how much better is he going to be with his arm this year? Ole Miss was a team that felt it was a playoff team last year. That kind of obviously all died in the swamp. I was there for that game. This is a team that beat Georgia by 100 last year. It's actually 28-10. So Ole Miss thinks it's going to be a playoff contender again. Austin Simmons will step into the quarterback role. That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. We also talked about Tennessee. We've already talked about them. So, I think Oklahoma, if you're looking at the second side of this column, I think Oklahoma, Auburn, Missouri are all teams that can definitely finish higher than what they're slated here. Oklahoma just underachieved last year, week 1 in the SEC, obviously, or year 1 in the SEC. Obviously, they beat Alabama, knocked the Tide out of the playoffs, beat them by 3 touchdowns. They also lost to South Carolina by 26. They lost to Texas by 31. They lost to LSU by 20. John Mateer steps in at quarterback there. John Mateer was at Washington State, big passing game. I saw someone yesterday, and I'll have to look this up. Someone said that John Mateer was going to be the best quarterback in the country. I saw an analyst said that yesterday. I'll have to look that up. I saw somebody talk about, who was this? Pulling this up now. Said he was going to win the Heisman. Chris Doering said that from SEC Network. He said, I think this guy is going to be the SEC Player of the Year, and I also think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. So if you don't know who John Mateer is, do some research. Do some research on John Mateer. I think he's going to lead a loaded Oklahoma offense in the SEC. I think Jaden Ott coming over from California is huge for Oklahoma as well. And if you look at their schedule, that Oklahoma-Michigan game is going to be a huge game. I mean, obviously 2 monster programs, but which one of those teams is ready to take the next step back into national prominence? Michigan obviously was the national champion 2 years ago. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Wolverines. They beat Ohio State last year. They beat Alabama in a bowl game. But they were not a top 10 team last year. They weren't even really a top 15 team last year. They couldn't move the ball on offense at all. Oklahoma had similar struggles last year with Jackson Arnold. So now the question is Oklahoma ready to take the next step? Is Michigan? We'll find out. One of those teams is going to be ranked pretty highly after that game and will be considered a team that is among the national frontrunners in the top 15 teams in the country. So I think that's huge. Then they play at Temple. They play Auburn. They play Kent State. They could, if they beat Michigan, Oklahoma could go into the Texas game on October 11th 5-0. Afterwards, they play at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama. and Missouri. So I'm going to go through that one more time. So this is Oklahoma's 2025 schedule. You can distinctly cut it in half, guys. They play Illinois State. Then they play Michigan, at Temple, Auburn, and Kent State. Those are the first 5. You could easily see the Sooners being 5-0. Now listen to this stretch afterwards. They play Texas. Obviously, that's a neutral site game, as it always is. Then they play at South Carolina. Then they host Ole Miss. They play at Tennessee. Those 4 are back-to-back, no byes in between. Then they go to Bryant-Denny to play Alabama. Then they play Missouri and LSU. That Michigan game is huge because Oklahoma has got a ridiculous schedule down the stretch. So it will be very interesting to see how that goes for the Sooners. If they can get to the Texas game 5-0, we'll see if they can carry that momentum on. I do want to hit on Auburn real quick. Speaking of Jackson Arnold, there he is. Right there for the Tigers with Hugh Freeze. I thought Hugh Freeze going to Auburn was going to be an unbelievable hire. They were 5-7 last year. It just has not worked out yet for the Tigers. I was reading earlier this week. It may have been Bill Barnwell. I need to look up who it was on ESPN.com. Said that Auburn was the unluckiest team in the SEC last year, and that may be true, But you could see on offense the struggles, which is not what you would expect with Auburn. They lost to Cal by 7 last year. They lost to Arkansas by 10. They lost to Oklahoma by 6. Georgia beat them pretty bad. They lost to Missouri by 4. They lost to Vandy by 10. I mean, this is not that's just not what you expect from Auburn. This is the year where they get both Georgia and Alabama and Jordan Hare. Typically, that's when Auburn surprises. And it's every other year. They at least don't play them back to back anymore. Those two teams used to be very close to each other on Auburn's schedule. Auburn complained. The SEC has changed that. Thank goodness for the Tigers. They open with a game against Baylor, Ball State, South Alabama. Then they go to Oklahoma and A&M. Then they play Georgia and Missouri. I mean, there's a lot of challenging games for Auburn on this list, on this schedule. The back half of the schedule is much easier, though. Again, if you pick up with Missouri in October, they play Missouri, at Arkansas, Kentucky, at Vandy, Mercer, and then Alabama, obviously being the big one in the Iron Bowl. If Auburn can get off to even a 3-2 start, they might be in pretty good shape to have a pretty good year for Hugh Freeze. So I would look out for the Tigers. And then I want to talk about Missouri because I want to talk about the schedule. I want to talk about them going to the other Tigers here. The Missouri Tigers football schedule. This is the easiest schedule in the SEC. So if you're picking Missouri to finish 12th in the SEC like the media did here, you got to look at their schedule. They play Central Arkansas. I'm gonna give them a win there. I'm gonna say 1. They play Kansas. They should win that one. They play Louisiana. That's 3. Now again, these aren't SEC games, but they're probably 3-0. Then they play South Carolina. Probably gonna lose that one, I would think, right? Even though that game is in Columbia, Missouri, not Columbia, South Carolina. It's in Columbia. It's a home game for Missouri. They play UMass. Then they play Alabama. Okay. So here's something through those first 6 games. They're not on the road. They're not on the road. They're at home until October 18th. The Missouri Tigers do not play on the road until October 18th. That game is at Auburn, who we were just talking about. Then they play at Vandy. I have a lot of respect for what Vanderbilt did last year. Diego Pavia, I would watch that kid play every Saturday for the next 10 years and wouldn't get bored watching him at quarterback. I watched him at New Mexico State beat Auburn. He is super talented, and what they've done at Vanderbilt is unbelievable. But if I'm going on the road in the SEC, I want to go to Vanderbilt. I mean, it's just the truth. Most of the time, the stadium is more filled with other fans than Vandy fans. I'm sure there's a lot of excitement around the Commodores this year. But let's be real. If you're going to play on the road, you'd probably want to play there. So that's their second road game. Then they host A&M and Mississippi State. So by the time we get to November 22nd, we're talking Thanksgiving week here. This is Thanksgiving week, guys. Missouri will have played 2 road games. 2. One of them is at Auburn, and the other is at Vanderbilt, where they may have just as many fans there as the Commodores do. All right. Then their last 2 games are at Oklahoma, and who knows what we're getting with Oklahoma. I just read their schedule for the back half of the year. Oklahoma could be coming in on 3 or 4 losses out of 4 or 5 games, and then they play at Arkansas. Is Sam Pittman coaching for his job when Missouri plays in Fayetteville? I mean, there's a very real possibility of that. I mean, Arkansas is obviously picked 14th in the conference. So Missouri's 4 road games are against teams in the second column. Auburn, who's picked 11th in the SEC. Vanderbilt, who's picked 13th. Oklahoma, who's picked 10th in the SEC. And Arkansas, who's picked 14th. So if you want a team that may overachieve, and I have no idea what their over-under is for wins. They won 10 games last year. But if you want a team that might surprise everybody and make the playoff just by winning a lot of games in the SEC, maybe it's Missouri. I don't think that the roster is a top 15 team or a top 20, maybe even not a top 25 team, I wouldn't say. But the schedule definitely opens up and gives them a chance. So Ryan, why do you say what do you think? Why do you think the Gators are so overrated? I'd love to hear that. Matt says Kentucky is shocking the world, man. All right, tell us why. We'll talk about Kentucky. Auburn above Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue that Oklahoma beat them last year. Oklahoma beat Auburn last year. So, that's going to be a pretty big game with Jackson Arnold playing in it. And let's see, that game is in Norman as well. That's week 4, right? So we'll find out a lot about those teams in week 4. We really will. I mean, I think we'll learn some about Auburn against Baylor. I don't think that's a give me. I don't think that's a win that they're necessarily going to get. I believe that game is at Baylor. And then they go to Oklahoma 3 weeks later, September 20th. Maybe in a game that separates two want to be SEC contenders. Matt's all in on Oklahoma. Yeah, Baylor. Listen, Baylor the favorite in the Big 12, or at least probably one of the favorites. Baylor's favored over Auburn. That's interesting. Leighton says go Gators. Running back from Missouri. There you go. Yeah, look, I don't know a lot about Ahmad Hardy. I'm not going to say that I've specifically broken down tape of Ahmad Hardy. He did rush for 1,300 yards last year at Louisiana Monroe. So, yeah, Hitman. Sorry, I jumped in and then corrected myself. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me with Baylor being at home, especially with what Auburn looked like last year. Hugh Freeze to me is a program builder. I was at the game where Ole Miss beat Alabama and Bryant-Denny. I was covering that game. Golly, it feels like it was yesterday, but it was many years ago now. What was that, like 2015? Hugh Freeze obviously has had some issues since then and has resurfaced now at Auburn after being, where was he, Liberty. But you would think that this is the year for him, right? Auburn does not have a lot of patience, man. I promise. They don't have a lot of patience with coaches on the plains. So it's now or never for Hugh Freeze. He better buckle up. He better buckle up. He better hope Jackson Arnold is the guy. John says Ohio State runs the SEC. Listen, Ohio State, I don't know that I would say they run the SEC. They did beat the heck out of Tennessee last year. They did embarrass Nico Iamaleava and Josh Heupel in the Vols last year. No doubt about that. I think Tennessee and Oklahoma might be better than A&M and Missouri. Yeah, Zach, that's an interesting thought. K1 says go Gators. Look, we talked about this at the beginning. There were less people in here then. K1 and also Leighton. I'd love to hear what you guys think about DJ Lagway. That's where I started the show. I'm a Gators fan. Obviously, I've never hidden that. You guys probably know that. But I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned. I know that it's a minor thing with the walking boot, but this is a guy that hasn't thrown in the spring, and now all of a sudden he's not able to practice right now either. Yes, I think DJ Lagway is immensely talented. I think he might be the best quarterback in the entire country talent-wise, but he needs to have rapport with his receivers. You've got some new guys coming in with Sturdivant. You've got Dallas Wilson. You've got the other freshman, Vernell Brown, who's come in. So you got to have time and practice to develop the timing, So I'm concerned about that. I agree with that, K1. I think they had him. I think they had him on the ropes. I see Coach in here. How's it going, Coach? 11 through 13 on this list are better than 7 through 10. That's an interesting thought. I really do. And look, guys, I live in SEC country. I live in Florida. I'm a Gators fan, but I'm going to talk about the other conferences in the upcoming days. Okay, I did focus on the SEC today, but I want to talk about some of the other media picks here over the next couple days. So this show will not just be focused on the SEC. I promise. Cassius, I cannot wait to talk about North Carolina. I know Coach would probably love to talk about North Carolina too. I promise we're going to talk about the ACC soon. This is what I'll tell you. This is my immediate thought on North Carolina, and I'll save some other thoughts for a future show. Have you seen their schedule? Because they only leave the state of North Carolina like 2 or 3 times. I mean, I know that that's an easy place to start. But if you're looking for a team that might surprise or overachieve, you got to start with the schedule, right? Because the teams that you play, they're the ones that can beat you. They only play, I think, 3 games outside the state of North Carolina. They play Charlotte as one of the road games, okay? They play at Wake Forest as one of the road games, and they play at NC State as one of the road games. Clemson is the big one, obviously. But they miss out on some of the other favorites in the ACC. I think North Carolina could have a great season. I don't know what to think about Belichick and his girlfriend and all of that. But I do know this. When they roll out the football, none of that stuff matters. Yeah, Hampton leaving is huge for them. I do want to watch some more of Gio Lopez. I watched him a little bit at South Alabama last year. Tim, listen, I've got a friend who is a huge South Carolina fan. I mean, this is a guy that would bring up Connor Shaw in casual conversation as many times as he can. I don't know if you remember Connor Shaw. He led South Carolina to beat Alabama when Steve Spurrier was still the coach at the Gamecocks. I mean, that's how big of a fan this guy is. He thinks South Carolina is going to be great again this year. And again, I talked about this a little bit, so I won't exhaust everybody who's heard it. But it's going to be interesting to see how South Carolina actually handles having expectations this year. It really is. I think it's way different to come from behind and surprise everybody. You start 3-3, you lose to Alabama, you lose to LSU. Both of those were close games. And then you kind of run the table if you're South Carolina. You get hot at the right time, but nobody's really paying attention until the Clemson game. I just think it's different when you have the magnifying glass on you at the beginning of the year. When College Game Day is talking about you, one of the last picks on the show. It's different. So we'll see. Lenora Sellers is a great player. Chad says, put my Hogs at 16. We're getting 3 wins. Whoa. That would be the end of the Sam Pittman days, right? That would be the end. I like Sam Pittman. He came in and he immediately changed that program. He really did. I mean, it's been a few years, but immediately they were right in games. They were playing above their talent level. They want to play for that guy. To me, when I watch Arkansas play, this is a team that wants to play for their coach. I think that's why Sam Pittman is still there. Now, I'd love it, if an Arkansas fan wanted to tell me different. Chad may still be in here. I don't know, but to me, it feels like they want to play for Sam Pittman. Obviously, Taylon Green is back at quarterback there. They've got some pieces. The game against Arkansas State is going to be interesting. I don't think those two teams have ever played each other, and I think that game is in Little Rock this year. Arkansas State usually has a pretty good football program. Sam Pittman better win that one. I know that one. I know he better win that one. They also play Ole Miss and Memphis afterwards. So we were just talking about Missouri. Missouri plays two road games all year before Thanksgiving week. Arkansas will not be at home but one time before September 27th. By the way, who comes to Fayetteville on September 27th? Notre Dame. Listen, Kay, I think there's a lot of hype for LSU. There's a lot of hype for LSU this year. Obviously, you've got the quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, who everybody believes in. But we're going to find out a lot about the Tigers week 1, right, when they play Clemson. We saw what Clemson has done against other SEC programs in recent years where, Georgia has beaten them pretty good. Clemson's going to be pretty fired up with the top 5 team playing LSU. Those are probably going to be both top 5 teams, maybe top 10 at worst. So we're going to find out a lot about LSU. We're going to see if they deserve that number 4 spot in this media poll. Yeah, look, I think Gunnar Stockton is probably a step down from some of the other guys that have been at quarterback for Georgia the last few years. But when you have 5 stars all around you, I don't think that – look at some of the guys who have won at Georgia over the years. I don't think they're going to ask him to do too much. They have so much talent on both sides of the ball. I think Georgia's the favorite. As a Florida fan, that kills me. I know somebody just asked me, Jake. I think Georgia's got to be the favorite. I really do. They get Alabama at home. I think Tennessee is going to be still figuring themselves out after losing Nico in the offseason. That game September 13th. And they get 2 weeks before they host Alabama in Athens. They get Kentucky at home. They do go to Auburn. That one's interesting. But they get Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss beat the brakes off Georgia last year. I am sure Georgia is going to remember that and repay the favor on an Ole Miss team that is just not as good. And that game is also, again, in Athens. They get Florida in Jacksonville. I think Florida could have, and again, I'm a Gators fan. You can see the Gators glasses probably on my face as I'm saying this, the blue and orange tint. But it felt like Florida had Georgia in a tough position before DJ Lagway got hurt last year. We'll see if that's the case again this year. Road game at Mississippi State. Listen, the Cowbells can be loud, but you'd expect Georgia to win that one. Then they get Texas. That one's also in Athens. So if you look at Georgia's toughest games, put Florida to the side. That one is always in Jacksonville. But Alabama is in Athens. They play Ole Miss in Athens. They play Texas in Athens. I do think Georgia Tech's going to be pretty good again this year with Haynes King back. But that's a very manageable schedule. It's a very manageable schedule. Yeah, I think Florida was tied with Georgia late in that game with absolutely no passing game. Absolutely no passing game with Lagway out. Florida's backup quarterback situation last year was putrid. Embarrassing for a top 20 program in the country. Absolutely embarrassing. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I won't get into it with some of the guys who left the roster or were kicked off the roster. There are reasons that Billy Napier was in that position. So I don't want to just act like those things didn't happen, but Florida had no quarterback behind DJ Lagway last year. They do this year. But for Florida to have been in that game was shocking. Absolutely shocking. Hey, Coach, they all won. Yes. What I mean by that is Stetson Bennett, there's a reason Stetson Bennett, maybe off-the-field stuff has contributed to this. I hope Stetson has gotten some of the help he needs. But Stetson Bennett was not a first-round pick regardless of off-the-field stuff. Jake Fromm was a good quarterback in college. Definitely not an NFL player. Carson Beck, man, I have a lot of thoughts on Carson Beck. Maybe I'll save it for the ACC show for us to talk about the ACC a little bit. But none of those guys were number 1 picks or first-round picks. So Georgia can win without an elite quarterback. Beck was obviously not who we thought he was going to be last year. Forced a lot of throws. So I'm reading through the comments here. Arkansas is a better team than Oklahoma, Auburn, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. Woo! All right, John. Listen, I would love to see it. I'll be honest. I'm a big fan of Sam Pittman and his personality and the way those guys play football. You're not going to get an argument out of me. I think Taylon Green could surprise some people. I think people forget how good he is. He's got a lot of experience. He's been there. I think having an experienced quarterback in the SEC is huge. So, Leroy Jenkins, crazy take. I haven't even seen the take. What was the take? I'm missing it. Oh, Gators too high. I see it. Okay. Mississippi State will upset a lot of people this year. Y'all just don't know ball. Colin, give us your argument for that. Give us your argument. Listen, I didn't rank these teams. This is from the media. This was the media's picks after SEC Media Days wraps up. Every Media Days, they asked the media to vote on where teams are going to finish in the conference, and Mississippi State was last. I think Blake Shapen, obviously at quarterback, he missed most of last year, right? So, I watched the whole Florida game. I watched them play a couple games last year, but as a Gators fan, I watched the whole Florida game. He moved the ball up and down the field in that game. So they can definitely move the football. They have a pretty decent home field advantage when they're good. The opener at Southern Miss, I don't even know if that's a give me, though. I really don't. I mean, you guys tell me, how many times does Mississippi State win at Southern Miss if they played 10 times? 10 times? I don't know that they do. Maybe do they split? I think Southern Miss could upset Mississippi State in the opener, or at least play with them. I really do. They play Arizona State in the second game. Don't forget the Sun Devils were in the college football playoff last year. It's just not. It's not an easy schedule. They play Tennessee, A&M, Florida, Texas. They do play Arkansas. That's obviously a game that they would expect to win. Both teams would think they're going to win that one. Georgia, Missouri, Ole Miss. There's not a lot of wins on that schedule. I think that's why they're picked 16th. Bama loses week 1. Evan, we talked about it. Look, I can't believe that Thomas Castellanos said what he said, calling out Alabama. It's the new quarterback at Florida State. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. I really don't. I don't. Not based on where Mike Norvell and that program were last year. I think Castellanos is going to be a huge change at quarterback. I think that kid is so much better than any quarterback they had on the roster last year. Way better than DJU. But my goodness, I don't know that you poke the bear, man. And they already have. Doug, we talked about Missouri. Yeah. They only played two road games before Thanksgiving, man. They could absolutely surprise some people. With the schedule they have, absolutely. Missouri has got a schedule that could take you to the playoff. I don't know that the talent is there. I think that's why they're 12th. I don't think they have the talent of some of these Missouri teams from the last couple years that have been so good. But the schedule sets up. If Florida, and I'm just using Florida as an example because I think Florida has arguably the toughest schedule in the country. Florida could play 3 or 4 top 5 teams this year by the time they play them. They really could. So if you took Florida and gave them Missouri's schedule, Florida would probably pick 1 or 2 on this list. You could say that for most of the teams in the top 4 or 5. If they have Missouri's schedule, my God, man, they'd be the favorite to win the national championship probably. Vandy will do better than projected this year. Crystal, I think it's hard to argue. They beat Alabama last year. They had Texas on the ropes. Diego Pavia's back again. They do go to Bryant-Denny. They go to Columbia, South Carolina. They go to Austin, Texas. They go to Knoxville, Tennessee to play games this year. Those are some tough road games. They also play at Virginia Tech. They beat Virginia Tech in overtime last year in the opener. I watched some of that game. They host LSU. There are some games that are going to be tough for Vanderbilt to overcome. That's for sure. Missouri's better than Florida. Doug, I don't know. I don't know about that one. It's possible. But I think if DJ Lagway is healthy, which is a big question mark, Florida is going to be a pretty good team in the SEC. Those two teams don't play each other this year. But Florida does go to Miami. They go to LSU. By the time Missouri's played 2 road games, it'll be Thanksgiving. Florida will go to LSU and Miami by September 20th. They'll go to A&M on October 11th. Florida's schedule is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I am a Gators fan. There are other teams in the SEC who have tough schedules. I don't think anybody goes to the equivalent at LSU and Miami by the 3rd week of September. But, hey, Florida scheduled it, and now they deal with the repercussions. Finished above them 3 or 4 years, and Florida was projected to be better every year. Yeah, hey, absolutely. No, I think Missouri traditionally gets less respect than some of the powers in the SEC. No doubt about it. Absolutely, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think this Florida roster is much better than what it has been in previous years. Carson, this is the SEC predicted order of finish from the media. So they took all the media members, they poll them at the end of SEC media days. They do this for every conference, and this is how they ranked the 16 teams. So you won't see Clemson on this list, but we will talk about the ACC in days ahead. Yeah, Doug, I guess we'll see. Listen, if Missouri finishes ahead of Florida, make sure you find me in the chat in the weeks ahead. I will tell you probably a million excuses for the Gators, but I will tell you were right. Trust me. They are being slept on. And like I said, I don't know if you guys were in here, but I literally just made the argument why I think Missouri is way underrated just based on schedule alone, and why I think Missouri could even be a playoff dark horse based on their schedule. I don't know if anybody heard that, but I did just make that argument. So if you missed it, I will post this video, and hope you'll go back and watch that. It could be Brian. I mean, listen, where was it? Where was it that Mark Stoops almost got the job? What job was it he almost got a few years ago that everybody was up in arms about? I'm trying to remember. Was it A&M? Was it A&M? Yeah, where everybody was going crazy. Like, no, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen in College Station. I think Kentucky. Does it feel like to everybody else that Kentucky kind of reached their point? They beat Florida, which was huge. I was actually at the Florida-Kentucky game where they ended that 3-decade losing streak in the swamp. Mark Stoops was kind of on top of the world with Kentucky at that moment, right? I mean, that was about as high as that program gets in football. They were a top 20 team. We had divisions in the SEC at that point. They were really the main team that Georgia had to go through, and I say go through because Georgia ran over them like they were sitting still. But now you got to wonder, right? Like if they kind of reached the point that they're going to reach, and now it's kind of plateaued a little bit. Zach Calzada is the quarterback for Kentucky. Does it feel like he's been in college for 20 years? Does anybody remember when Zach Calzada led A&M over Alabama in a primetime game where A&M wasn't even ranked? They were supposed to be really good that year, but they ended up not being ranked, beat them on the last-second field goal. Zach Calzada was the quarterback for A&M in that game. That was years ago, guys. That was years ago. Now he's a senior at Kentucky. Talking about the Cats here, they play 3 games at home to begin the year. One of those is Ole Miss. They beat Ole Miss last year. Everybody says Ole Miss should have been in the playoff if they hadn't lost in the swamp. Well, don't forget, Ole Miss lost to Kentucky and Oxford last year. That happened. That was September 28th. I think a lot of Ole Miss fans forget that one. And they only scored 17 points. They gave up a huge 4th down at the end of that game, by the way. It was 4th and 7 on Kentucky's game-winning drive, way back in their own territory, and they threw like a huge pass down the field. I don't even know how it was caught. Kentucky goes in and scores, wins the game by 3. But Kentucky plays 3 home games. The big one, obviously, to begin the year is against the Rebels. Then they play at South Carolina and Georgia back-to-back. I mean, this is a team that could be 2-3 quick. Then they host Texas and Tennessee. They go to Auburn. Then they play Florida in Lexington. I don't think any Florida fans, and there's some Florida fans in the chat, take anything for granted against Kentucky anymore. But if you say that Florida is healthy and wins that game, how many wins does Kentucky have by that point? They play Toledo, Ole Miss, Eastern Michigan. I got 2. I'm not giving them Ole Miss. South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Auburn, and Florida. That's their first 9 games. I'm giving them 2 wins. They're out of bowl eligibility at that point. So yeah, if that plays out, this is a team that was 4-8 last year. Yeah, this could be it for Mark Stoops. That could be it. Texas at number one. This is not my list, Lewis. It actually says at the top 2025 SEC football media poll. This is from the media who covers the SEC, and we are talking about it. I have said I would have Georgia at number one on that list. Not only do they host Texas in Athens this year, they also get Alabama in Athens. I think Gunnar Stockton getting that playoff experience last year was huge. Georgia continues to bring in top talent, and honestly, in my opinion, I know Alabama beat them last year. I think that game was in Tuscaloosa. Georgia was probably the better team. They came back from that huge deficit. Ryan Williams made an unbelievable play, as great players do. I think Georgia's the top dog until someone knocks them off. And, yeah, pun intended, Georgia's clearly the team to beat to me. I do think Arch Manning's going to be pretty good. I think Texas is going to be really good again. But I would definitely have Georgia at the top of my favorites list right now in the SEC. Arkansas behind Vandy is crazy. Pavia is not it. Interesting. Listen, I like Diego Pavia a lot, so I don't have anything negative to say about that kid. I mean, how many players would go to Vandy and then be able to lead them to a 7-win season? How many quarterbacks in the country? I mean, 10? There aren't many. Not with the talent they have at Vanderbilt. And Diego Pavia came from New Mexico State, where he beat Auburn, by the way. I mean, he ran all over Auburn when he was at New Mexico State. That happened. And then he went to Vandy and led them to a 7-win season. That'll get you a statue in Nashville. It should. It should. I mean, he's their best quarterback since, golly, the guy who played for the Broncos. Why am I drawing a blank? Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler. Man, took me a minute. That was a deep pull. It's been a while since I've had to talk about Jay Cutler, guys. Listen, I agree. I think all Diego Pavia has done is win games. I think that's all the guy's done. I don't know what people want him to do. He's at Vanderbilt. He's at Vanderbilt. Do I think they're going to win 8 games? No. I don't. They also play a very challenging schedule. Now, they could get off to a good start. Playing in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech, I think Virginia Tech is going to be pretty down this year. There may be a Hokies fan in here that can enlighten us a little bit, give us a little bit more information. I know Kyron Drones is back. He's a senior at quarterback for the Hokies. That'll be a tough game for Vandy. But they play South Carolina week 3. And you guys tell me right now if I'm crazy, but I would put South Carolina on upset alert right now. I think Vanderbilt can win that game. Expectations for South Carolina, a Vanderbilt team that's just fun. I mean, everybody's cheering for Vandy, right? I mean, it's like in the NCAA tournament where an underdog, a 15 seed is playing a 2 seed at a neutral site. Everybody in the crowd is going for the 15 seed except for the fans of the 2 seed, right? I mean, is that not how it feels when Vanderbilt plays a great program? Everybody's going for Vandy. They're the happy-go-lucky upstarts that everybody's cheering for. So the pressure will be on South Carolina. That game is in Columbia. They play Georgia State and Utah State right after. Vandy could be a 3-win team, 3 or 4-win team at that point before they go to Bryant-Denny. But I guarantee you this, Alabama's not overlooking Vanderbilt again. No way. No way. No way is that going to happen. Jake, there are several big games week 1. We're talking about the SEC here. So you could be talking about LSU and Clemson. Throw them at me. Which game are you talking about specifically? And I'll give you some thoughts. I don't know that I'll make a final pick yet because I want to get closer to the games before we do that. Ohio State, Texas. Yeah. Listen, I think I would take Ohio State. I'll go ahead and give you the pick. Ohio State won the national championship. They have got enough talent coming back for me. I wasn't as big a fan of their quarterback last year as others were. Will Howard. Listen, they won the national championship. I'm not taking anything away from Will Howard. I'm definitely not. But you know, when you've got the talent they've got coming back like Jeremiah Smith and a Texas team that's starting a new quarterback, and I know it's Arch Manning. My goodness, I know. I would take Ohio State. It's gonna be a great game though. It's gonna be a great game. Got Kentucky over Arkansas. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, those teams are going to both be interesting. I think I would take Arkansas as well over Kentucky. I think Tyron Green back at quarterback. I also think that Sam Pittman just always seems to get a lot out of his guys. Mark Stoops, we've said that for years about Mark Stoops, but it kind of feels like they've plateaued a little bit. Texas is definitely beating Ohio State. Got that in the comments. Notre Dame on upset alert away at Arkansas. Yeah, I kind of mentioned that one a little bit earlier. That'll be an interesting game for Notre Dame. It really will. That's an early September game. It's week 3 or 4 for Arkansas and Fayetteville. That'll be an interesting game. That will be an interesting game for sure. Lenora Sellers Heisman. Yeah, I've got like I've said, I've got a buddy who's a big Carolina fan, and he thinks Lenora Sellers could be a Heisman contender. I don't know. I don't think I would go that far, guys. I think he's a great player. I think he's a fantastic player. He had an unbelievable season. South Carolina obviously has got a lot of momentum going into this year. So D says Florida should be lower. Jay says Ole Miss at 7. They're better than that. This is the media poll. So, again, this is not my poll. I do think it'll be interesting. Ole Miss has only got a couple of starters back on offense, right? Only a few starters in general, right? Isn't that correct? I think there's a lot of pieces there. Now, Ole Miss has always done really, really well in the transfer portal. That has been Lane Kiffin's thing since he got there. But this is a team that really just doesn't have that many starters back, I don't believe. 12 total, is that right? 12 starters? Austin Simmons is at quarterback? I don't know. With that schedule, they start with 4 winnable games. That they probably should win all 4 of those. Should have beat Kentucky last year too. Then they get LSU at home. We haven't really talked about the Ole Miss schedule, but 5 of the first 6 are at home. They play Washington State and Oxford on October 11th. Once you get through that first 6-game stretch, though, which includes LSU, by the way. It includes LSU and Oxford. Then you've got at Georgia and at Oklahoma back-to-back. So if you're thinking best-case scenario for Ole Miss, if you're talking best-case scenario, can you win those first 6? Could you win the first 6? You get LSU and Oxford. I think you could. I think you could pull an upset. Beat the Tigers. They would have already played Florida. LSU would have already played Clemson. LSU's got a pretty tough schedule up to that point. So, yeah, maybe Ole Miss surprises them. But then you got a split between Georgia and Oklahoma, right? Then you host South Carolina. You host Florida. I mean, most of Ole Miss's tough games, the only tough game they play on the road is at Georgia. So, yeah, Ole Miss is another team that could benefit from their schedule. Absolutely. Wouldn't shock me. Thanks, JC. I appreciate you joining, man. I kind of had this thing going on TikTok. Got it rolling during college basketball season. I do bracketology. And, man, we had a ton of people watching the tournament. And Selection Sunday was huge on my channel. But I'm also a huge football fan. I've covered sports for a long time. And just kind of getting this thing back started. My kids were home for summer, and frankly, they still are. They're being quiet right now. It's been great. But I want to do this daily. I want to do some stuff during games on Saturdays and Sundays. We're going to talk NFL as well. So any thoughts on times where you might be able to tune in, throw them at me, kind of up in the air. And also want to figure out the right time to go live on Saturdays. Do people want to watch football and talk to people on TikTok and YouTube and other places, or would you rather do a nightly recap? Would you rather talk before the games? I mean, I don't know. I think everybody's different, but I'd love to get some opinions on that too. So would love it if you'd follow me, and especially if you love these kind of conversations, because they're going to get better and better as we have more to talk about as we get closer to the season. It is not far away, and we got the Hall of Fame game tomorrow night, Lions and Chargers. So, yeah, I mean, I think Oklahoma at 10. I think there's a lot of people that are questioning Oklahoma after last year. Now, they beat the brakes off Alabama by 21. I would say that was mainly because Jalen Milroe just played horrible. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Oklahoma. I do think Oklahoma is going to be a dark horse in the SEC. It is weird seeing Oklahoma at 10 in a conference. But I do think it's a lot different when you move to the SEC. There's all of these teams. I mean, really the top 10 expect to be in the playoff, right? I mean, even Auburn. Auburn would tell you that Auburn fans aren't happy unless they're in the playoff. James says, no way Florida's number 6. Got an OK State fan weighing in on the Sooners, saying they're going to be a lot better. Man, what? Maddox, we're talking about the SEC today. We're going to get into other conferences. But, man, what in the world has happened in Stillwater, Oklahoma to Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State? I thought that they were going to be a dark horse last year in the Big 12. Frankly, when Texas and Oklahoma lost or left, I thought Oklahoma State was going to run that conference. And for years they would have. I have no idea what in the world happened to Oklahoma State last year. They had everybody back on their offensive line, and they were horrible. They were terrible, man. I'd love to hear what you have to say about them, and I hope you'll join me when I do the Big 12. So, thoughts on Justin Herbert being Kirk Cousins with better hair? I actually have a slide on Justin Herbert. I wanted to talk about Herbert today, but I think I might save it for tomorrow, the day of the Hall of Fame game, because I have some thoughts on Justin Herbert. Maybe he is. Maybe he is just Kirk Cousins with better hair. Maybe he's never going to win anything. Bama won in Missouri, top 8. Tennessee is a joke. Yeah, I think everybody has got different opinions on the Vols right now because I think if Nico Iamaleava was there, and he was really bad against good to great teams last year. There's a video on my channel breaking all that down. His record, his stats against the better teams he played last year were not good. Now, he's a young guy. He could have got better. We would expect improvement. But it feels like if Nico was at Tennessee, they would be higher than 9 on this list. And they would be considered a playoff dark horse or a playoff contender for sure. Now they're kind of in that role where nobody knows exactly what they're going to get at quarterback. And everybody kind of has taken a step down on Tennessee. Josh Heupel always has great offenses. Maybe he surprises us. He's got the kid from App State at quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's good. Will he get more than he got out of Nico? Maybe. Listen, I think the kid from App State is a senior. Aguilar, if I remember right. I've watched him play some. I believe he's a senior. Yeah. I mean, listen, we're talking about a guy who's played a lot of college football. Doesn't matter when Illinois wins the Natty this year. Taco, if that happens, I hope you put at least $5 on it. You're going to be a millionaire, man. You're going to be a millionaire. That would be mind-blowing. It'd be crazy. J-Dog, Clemson's not on here because this is the SEC picks from the media who covers that conference. They were all at SEC Media Days. We're going to talk about the ACC in future days, but obviously Clemson believes it's a national championship contender this year with Clay Klubnik back at quarterback. We'll see. They play LSU to open the year. We'll see. Ole Miss should be higher. I think we can be a dark horse in the league, especially with their schedule. Jackson, I don't disagree on Oklahoma. I don't disagree on Oklahoma at all. I can't wait until the Auburn-Oklahoma game. We can see Jackson Arnold against his old team. So that'll be interesting. I think Oklahoma could be better than 10. Breezo, I appreciate the rose. I really do. A&M is top 5, but have the toughest schedule in the country. Does A&M, and I kind of breezed through A&M, and it wasn't on purpose. We've just been talking about some of the other teams here. Do they play a tougher schedule than Florida? And the reason I say Florida is Florida plays this crazy schedule. Now, let's see. They play at Notre Dame. Now, they got them in College Station last year. That was a great game. Auburn, Mississippi State, they host Florida. Then they play at Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, South Carolina, Sanford, and at Texas to end the year. Definitely glad to again see Texas and A&M able to play again for the second year in a row. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenging schedule. I don't know if it's the toughest in the SEC. I do think going to Notre Dame obviously is tough. That's a team that was in the national championship game. So, absolutely, it's going to be interesting. I would love to see Marcel Reed throw the ball a little bit better than he did last year. Doug throwing out. Yeah, look, Clemson has struggled recently against SEC teams. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They have struggled against ACC teams. And the only way to change that perception, you play LSU, beat them, right? I mean, LSU is probably going to be a top 5 team, top 5, top 6. Got to beat them. Go beat them. If you're Dabo, go beat LSU. Change that perception. Don't put yourself in a situation where you've got to shock SMU to get into the playoff, guys. Clemson shouldn't be in that situation. Jake, it'll be soon. It'll be soon. It won't be that long. It won't be that long. Albrecht says the Big Ten's where it's at. Listen, I want to talk about the Big Ten. Maybe we'll get into the Big Ten tomorrow. There's a lot of people that want to talk the Big Ten today. The SEC was an easy one to discuss. There was some news there with DJ Lagway and Nick Saban. People wanted to talk about Nick Saban maybe coming back to coaching, so jumped into that a little bit earlier. And then got here, and there's a lot of discussion on this media poll. Noah, what gives you the confidence in Tennessee? So that would be my question to Vols fans. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Josh Heupel has built a good program there. I know Tennessee fans were fans of Nico, but when he left, the way he left, it was kind of like good riddance. We're going to be fine without you. Get out of here. Blah, blah, blah. I get it. That's how I'd feel too as a fan. But what gives you the confidence that Tennessee is going to be one of the upper echelon teams in the SEC? Because I think that is the question that I have not seen as many answers for the Vols as I've seen for some of the other teams. So, Mike, Sam, I talked about Missouri a lot earlier. What I would say, and I'll just do kind of a quick recap for everybody who has already been in here and has heard me say it a few times. They only play 2 road games by Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving week. No, you're fine, Mike. I get it, man. People are busy. They're just jumping in. Missouri only plays 2 road games by the time we get to Thanksgiving week. I think it's like November 22nd. They play their 3rd road game. That's insane, man. I think Missouri could definitely surprise some people with that schedule. I don't think the Tigers are as talented as they have been in previous years. I don't. But with that schedule, I think Missouri could be a dark horse to surprise a lot of people and finish higher than 12th, like the media predicted. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. State fan here, we're too high. That's funny. Ole Miss would not be good. Why do you think everybody thinks Mateer is really good? I have 8 quarterbacks in the SEC ahead. Yeah, that's a great question. I think part of it, and maybe this is simplifying it way too much. I mean, Tab, you can laugh at me for this, and I won't. I will definitely laugh with you, but I think part of it is we've all grown up watching those Washington State offenses and those Washington State quarterbacks put up all the yards, right? I mean, I just think that there's a little bit of something coming from Washington State that it's like, man, they got them a guy who can sling it, right? I do think he's a good quarterback. I've watched him play some. I don't know that he's the best quarterback in the SEC. I mean, it was Chris Doering who said he's the best quarterback in the country, right? That he's going to win the Heisman this year. I don't know that that's going to be the case. We have seen a run where Oklahoma quarterbacks do well when it comes to putting up stats. Winning the Heisman, they've won more Heismans than just about anybody over the last 10 years. So maybe, but I don't know. I mean, I was trying to pull up Mateer's stats for last year. I know they're on here. They actually may not be on. I may have to flip over to Washington State stuff, but he had a good year. Okay, I'm going to do it in the next couple of days. We're going to run through all of these. We're going to run through all of the, at least the major conferences. Oh, and I do think they could finish higher. I mean, any year where Auburn, and I used to live very close to Auburn. I've lived very close to Tuscaloosa. I mentioned that earlier. I used to live 40 minutes from Auburn too. Lived there for 7 years. Any year that Auburn gets Alabama and Georgia and Jordan Hare, they're a dark horse. and those are the years where Auburn is good. When Auburn doesn't have all the expectations to be a top 10 team, and then they get Georgia and Alabama coming into Jordan-Hare, that's always when Auburn is scary. It doesn't matter who's coaching them. It doesn't matter who's on the roster. Oh, and if you're an Auburn fan, you've experienced that. You know what I'm talking about. Those are the years where Auburn is scariest. Those are the years where the Tigers seem to sneak up on people. So, yeah, absolutely. I think Auburn could finish higher than 11th. And frankly, they better, or Hugh Freeze isn't going to have a job. So, and I thought Hugh Freeze was a great hire when they hired. I mean, you're talking about there were only a couple people who had proven they could consistently beat Nick Saban. Hugh Freeze was one of those guys. You hire him at Auburn. It makes all the sense in the world. Obviously, Saban is retired now. But it made all the sense in the world to go get Hugh Freeze. If you believe all the scandal and all the stuff that happened at Ole Miss, if you were fine with all that, from the coaching point, it made sense to hire Hugh Freeze. And for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. To me, it's pretty obvious. The reason it hasn't worked out is because the quarterback situation. Now they have a quarterback. Jackson Arnold is a really good player. By the way, he's already beaten Alabama. So he makes sense. He should be a good player for Auburn. They should be able to move the football. Hugh Freeze should have a good offense this year. They get Georgia and Alabama and Jordan-Hare. I think Auburn could definitely finish higher than 11th. Thomas, with that schedule, I definitely think Missouri could. I don't think Missouri's a top 5 team in the SEC. I do think that with their schedule, they could definitely finish there, though. I think Auburn defense could be the best in the country. Yeah, I don't know that they're going to be the best in the country, but, they have a really good up-and-coming defense for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, their defense kept them in games last year. Their defense really kept them in games last year. The A&M game got a little out of hand, but I mean, the team that Auburn had last year really shouldn't have even been in the Iron Bowl game. I mean, the fact that Alabama only beat them by a couple scores was kind of surprising. Mark Stoops is motivated. The big blue wall is back. Waco, I'm not laughing. I just love the Mark Stoops and the big blue wall is back. Listen, anytime Kentucky fans are excited outside of basketball season, sign me up, man. Sign me up. That's what makes SEC football so much fun. And I'll tell you, as a Florida fan, and I've said it a couple times during this live, and I'll repeat it, Kentucky used to be a game that Florida just counted as a win. Never again. Never again, man. Never again. Yeah, JB, look, I don't disagree with you. I know that losing Nico was a big change, but you also, Samson's not back either. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Tennessee does. They definitely are not getting the love they would have gotten if Nico was back at quarterback. Alabama wins the SEC, Brody says. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I'll tell you guys, and I don't want to speak for Alabama fans because I'm not one. I know a lot of them. There was this weird roller coaster with Jalen Milroe, man. They were not on board with Jalen Milroe. Then, 2 years ago, it became apparent that they just weren't quite as good on offense as they were. They didn't have as many playmakers. And that Jalen Milroe was their best offensive playmaker, running the ball. And then, this past year, Ryan Williams came along as a freshman, obviously. There were expectations for Jalen Milroe. Played some pretty bad games. Alabama fans went the other way. And I'm not hating on Jalen Milroe. I don't mean it that way. But I think if you ask Alabama fans, and there's probably some in this chat, they are they were not sad to see him go and to have a new quarterback in there. Is there a Crimson Tide fan or two in here in the chat that can confirm that? That yeah, hey, Jalen was a good player, good runner, could have come a long ways as a passer. Still has a long ways to go, but I don't think Alabama fans are really mourning that he's in the NFL now instead of back. Brody, do you agree with that? Are you an Alabama fan? I agree with your take. Sebastian, this is the SEC Media Day poll. So the media voted on the top 16 in the SEC as they do every single year. So Notre Dame's not in the SEC, so they're not here. But we will talk about Notre Dame probably this week. Bo, I think he's going to be sitting for a while, and I think that's what he needs. Talking about Jalen Milroe here. Yeah, this is Brandon, Bama fan here. Love Milroe, but he was holding others back. There you go. That's what I've heard from Alabama fans, and I know a ton of them consistently. The same thing is when he decided to go to the NFL draft, it was like, this might work out. This might work out, and I think that's how they feel right now. I think that there's a lot of questions with Ty Simpson. There's a lot of questions. Kalen DeBoer's got a lot of questions to answer. He's known for his offense. Obviously, has had good offenses everywhere he's gone. Things didn't quite work out with Jalen Milroe. Now he's going to have to figure it out with Ty Simpson. I really appreciate the follows, guys. Really do. I had this thing kind of rolling during college basketball season, just now getting it started back. My kids are about to go back to school. I've got a little bit of time to jump back into this and want to do a daily show. Definitely want to do some stuff on Saturdays and Sundays too. Jake, are we talking? I haven't looked at the Kentucky basketball schedule, but I can tell you without looking at it, they might be 11-1 in basketball. I assume that's what you're talking about, unless you want to flip the numbers around. I'm just joking. I think the Wildcats are. If you're a Kentucky fan, I asked this question earlier, and I would love to hear. Jake, I'd love to hear your answer for this. Mark Stoops had them overachieving, right? They were overachieving to the point that he almost got the A&M job. They'd beaten Florida for the first time in decades. They were a top 20 program for several years in a row. Does it feel like they have plateaued now? Does it feel like they're going down a little bit? JB, we're talking about the SEC today, but I'm going to get into some of the other conferences in the days ahead. Today was the day to talk about the SEC, but we're going to talk about the ACC. We're going to talk about the Big Ten. We're going to talk about the Big 12. It's not going to just be the SEC on this channel. But with some of the news that is coming out in the SEC the last couple of days, it was kind of easy to put it together. And this is the media poll for the SEC. We'll talk about the media poll for the other conferences as well. The media or the SEC media days for the SEC was a couple weeks ago. I think. Gosh, I'm going to get this wrong. One of the conferences just had their media day. Was it the ACC last week or the Big 12? That they kind of go all throughout the summer, all throughout July. So I knew the SEC's was over and had not had a chance to talk about it. I think SEC media day may have been the first one of the major conferences, so I wanted to talk about it. Tom, I think that's a huge point. Having Ryan Grubb back is huge. Yeah, and I kind of missed that when I was talking about Alabama, but obviously DeBoer has been at his best when he's had Grubb on his staff, so that'll be big. Mister, which team are you talking about? He said we can finish 8-4. I'm just not sure which team he's referring to. ACC and Big Ten. There you go. Yeah, I knew they were recent, so we'll get into those as well. It felt like the SEC was a little bit further back, so wanted to talk about them. Yeah, look, I think Mississippi State is going to be probably better, especially with their quarterback actually healthy. But the question is, how can they, deal with that schedule in the SEC? It's so hard to win in Starkville, man. This is funny to say, but you start a dynasty on the new college football game and want a challenge. Go to Starkville, Mississippi. Go to Nashville, Tennessee, and head coach Vanderbilt, or be the Mississippi State head coach. It's just hard to recruit great players when you have all these other massive programs in the SEC, and that's not hating on Mississippi State at all. Absolutely. Listen, it's a Dak and CD shirt. Look, you can hate on me for it. Absolutely, I get it, man. I absolutely get it. Robs, it's a fair point. I am a Cowboys fan. I don't hide that. For many, many years, working in a smaller scale of the media, the newspaper business, kind of always, didn't put it out there that I was a Florida Gators fan or a Dallas Cowboys fan. But getting to do this on TikTok and the other social media channels, I want people to know my bias when I talk. I want people to know that, hey, yeah, I'm talking favorably about this team, but I'm also biased. So I am a fan. I'm a fan just like you guys. So absolutely. Colbs, that's a great question for the people who voted in the poll. Those two teams play each other very early on in the year. We're going to see. We're going to find out. Call it the Jackson Arnold Bowl. 2,068 days since Ohio State beat Michigan. Listen, one of my really good friends is a Michigan fan, and I talk to him every day of that game. I talk to him every day, every year they play that game. And he called me last year and he couldn't believe it because I told him Michigan had no chance. I said there's no way Michigan's going to win this game. Now, who would have ever thought that after that conversation that day that Ohio State would go on to win the national championship? But they did. Tom, you're completely right about Vandy. Jace, I think getting Jaden Ott was huge for Oklahoma. I think that was huge in the offseason after all these moves had been made, and all of a sudden Jaden Ott goes to Oklahoma. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Then you add Mateer at quarterback. People are sleeping on Oklahoma. They're sleeping on Oklahoma. I think that we're going to learn a lot. We're talking about Michigan. Somebody mentioned them. Mentioned the losing streak that Ohio State has to Michigan. So it goes pretty easy into Oklahoma. Week 2, those two teams play each other. We're going to learn a lot about the Wolverines and the Sooners when those two teams play each other on September 6th. I believe that game is in Norman. That is huge for momentum. For two programs that are national powers, they have got, both of them believe they're going to win that game. Both of them believe they're going to have great seasons. They believe they're going to be in the playoff. It's going to be hard to do with their schedules if they don't win that game. Michigan comes to Lincoln 2 weeks later. Listen, I definitely want to get into the Big Ten, and we'll probably do that tomorrow. I have a lot of thoughts on Nebraska. I definitely had a lot of thoughts on Nebraska last year. So, Corey, join us. Join us when I talk about the Big Ten for sure because, with Dylan Raiola back and Nebraska, it just – gosh, if you're a Nebraska fan, you know this better than me, but college football is better when Nebraska's good. And, man, has it been a long, long time since Eric Crouch in Nebraska where we're really, really, running all over people, man. It is overdue in college football for Nebraska to be truly back. Does Kentucky have a ceiling of 7-5? Man, maybe. I don't know. What are you going to get in Zach Calzada? What are you going to get? Am I Scotty Scheffler's dad? That's funny. I wish I was. You know what? You know what's funny? I think Scotty Scheffler and I are about the same age. So maybe I could be his brother. I wish I could swing a golf club like Scotty Scheffler. Has anybody seen Happy Gilmore 2? Felt like Scotty Scheffler really got a chance to show his personality. I thought that was a lot of fun. I am a big golf fan, so. Why do you think Tennessee is number 9? T-Hall, I think it's a direct reflection of Nico leaving. If Nico Iamaleava was still the quarterback at Tennessee, they would be a top 5 or 6 team on this list. I think that there's an overreaction probably. Look, teams, look at the top 25 poll. Any top 25 poll you want to look at. Almost every single one of those teams that are ranked high don't have a question mark at quarterback. Texas has got Arch Manning. Georgia's got Gunnar Stockton. LSU's got Garrett Nussmeier. Alabama's won half of the national championships for the last 20 years. South Carolina's got Lenora Sellers. Florida's got DJ Lagway. There's your answer. The teams that have quarterbacks that we have seen play well in big games are the ones that typically get ranked higher in the offseason. Tennessee lost their guy. I have a lot of thoughts on Nico. I think he's overrated, but that is why they're number 9 on this list. I think it's as simple as that, man. Cody, I look, kind of flipping around here, talking about Happy Gilmore too. I don't think the movie was amazing, but I think given the 25 years in between and going in knowing it was an Adam Sandler movie and knowing that it was going to be stupid in parts, I actually think it was better than I thought it was going to be. I'll be honest. As a Carolina fan, I think it's going to be a disappointing season. Mama Bear, don't tell my buddy that because I think he thinks South Carolina is going to be in the playoff. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the expectations. Talent all around the board. Arkansas will finish at least 6th. Woo, Bailey, that's a pretty big prediction. That's a pretty big prediction. Thoughts on Kansas? Look, we'll do a day on the Big 12. We'll do a day on the Big 12. Need to go back to the Cam Newton days of Auburn, man. Yeah, look, Cam Newton was unbelievable, man. B. Mitch. 25 years. Listen, I don't know. Hasn't it been 25 years or so? Maybe longer than that since Happy Gilmore came out. I don't know. It's 2025. I guess it was longer than 25 years. Look, don't make me feel old, man. Golly. I guess it was longer than that. Wasn't even born when Happy Gilmore came out. Wow. I'm 35. I was born when it came out. I don't remember what year it was. I didn't watch it that year. Couldn't watch it that year. Had to wait till later. I appreciate the follows. We got to Roll Tide. We got to Go Vols. Jason, this is the SEC media poll. So this is the media who covers the SEC. This is their poll. They always do this at the end of all the media days. We're going to get into the other conferences. We're going to talk about the Big Ten probably tomorrow. There's a lot of interest in the Big Ten. We'll probably jump into the Big Ten tomorrow on this show about the same time. Definitely not sliding the national champions here. Just talked about the SEC today. 29 years ago. Thanks, Tom. 29 years ago. Man. Listen. Nick Marshall was not much of an interview, but that dude could play some football, couldn't he? He could run that Gus Malzahn offense. How is LSU not above Bama? Hey, do you remember what Bama did to LSU last year? And look, I'm not taking up for Alabama, but do you remember what Bama did to LSU last year? Whew, if I'm a LSU guy, I don't know if I'm saying a whole lot about Alabama right now. I think game day was there. That was supposed to be a huge game. If anybody remembers the LSU-Alabama game last year, I don't even think I watched the second half. I don't even think I watched a play of the second half. It was 42-13. 42-13 last year. It was ugly. Zach, I think with Tyron Green back at quarterback, they're going to be interesting. I think that early on in the year we're going to learn a lot about Arkansas. We're going to learn a lot. Throw Alabama A&M out. You obviously would expect that one to be a win. If you're a Razorback fan, you would know more about this than I do. I don't know if you're just asking about Arkansas, but the Arkansas State game, I think that's the first time those two programs have ever played. I think Arkansas has always kind of shied away from playing Arkansas State. They have a pretty good program. That seems like a scary game. I think it's in Little Rock on a neutral site. So that'll be interesting. I'm not saying Arkansas is going to lose that game. I just think it's going to be more interesting than what people know nationally from what I've read about that game coming together. And then they play at Ole Miss and at Memphis back-to-back. They could lose both of those. And then Notre Dame comes to Fayetteville. So, and then they, by the way, then they have 2 weeks off before they play at Knoxville in Tennessee. So that is a pretty tough stretch to begin the year when you throw in the randomness of the Arkansas State game coming together for the Razorbacks. So if you're Sam Pittman, I know this. Don't lose to Arkansas State, and you got to split. I mean, you would think you'd beat Memphis, but man, that's not a give me. Memphis can win that game. Also, that's kind of a, not that those two teams play very often, but that's a little bit of a low-key little rivalry not that far away from each other. I could see that being a game that Memphis fans are pretty into as well in Memphis. So, will OU end up in the top three? Colin, I don't know that I would say that. It's going to be hard to break into that top three, isn't it? I mean, does anybody in the chat see Texas finishing worse than third in the SEC? And look, I think there's question marks there. I think Sark's got some questions. I don't think that Arch Manning is, I don't think he's just a sure thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be good, but we really don't know that much about Arch. He was behind Quinn Ewers all last year, right? So we haven't seen him really take the reins in a huge game for Texas. But if you think Texas and Georgia are locks to finish in the top three in the SEC, and it would be pretty shocking if they don't, then there's really only one spot there for a team like Oklahoma to break into. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be in the top three. I don't think they're going to be in the top three. Frank, we've talked about the Gators. I'm a Florida fan, so I have given my thoughts. I am frankly very concerned. I'm sorry, reading the comments. I'm frankly very concerned about DJ Lagway's health. Very concerned. Eddie, I think I think I think Quinn Ewers was underappreciated. I understand people might like throw fruit at me or something about that, but I think Quinn Ewers was always underappreciated at Texas. But the truth is, he was what, a 6th-round draft pick this year. I think he went to Miami. But I do. I really do, because Quinn Ewers won a ton of games. Do Texas fans remember where Texas was a few years ago before Sark and Quinn Ewers? Always wanting to be back but never back, and now they're in the playoff. They're one of the top teams in the country, and the guy who was at quarterback for that they just didn't appreciate him at all. I mean, Maverick, I'm trying to get through all the comments, but I just think that there was just this jump to Arch, and I get it. I understand Arch Manning. He's a Manning. I get it. But Quinn Ewers won a lot of games at Texas, man. He won a lot of Texas. Brian, I'm not going to say it. Maverick, I'm going to be interested to see Austin Simmons. I haven't, we'll see how he does at Ole Miss. Obviously, taking over at quarterback, I don't have a strong opinion on him. I would say that he's definitely below these other top guys that we know more about right now. I know he was pretty highly recruited. Yeah, I mean, Colin, we'll see about Arch. We'll see. Ewers couldn't beat Georgia's second-string quarterback in a playoff game. Yeah, but I mean, Gunnar Stockton is also their starting quarterback this year. So, I watched the Ole Miss Georgia game last year. Yes, they killed Georgia. It was crazy. I didn't think Georgia could lose a game like that during the Kirby Smart days. At least now that he's got them loaded and rolling through teams. Carolina's going to have a great year. A lot of people think so, Ryan. A lot of people think so. Embarrassing Ewers was dog water, pampered stats. He's lucky. Texas's O-line and receivers were. But, Eddie, I guess the argument I'm making, and look, I didn't think I would be defending Quinn Ewers today, but wasn't Texas back forever until Quinn Ewers became the quarterback and then they were actually back? So this is, I see SJO talking about Ohio State. We're going to talk about the Big Ten later this week. Today is kind of SEC day. Today's SEC day on the program, which we just got started back. So if you love talking college football and love talking the NFL, I hope you'll follow me. We're going to do this daily, and I'd love some thoughts on Saturdays and Sundays. When would you want somebody to go live? Are you going to watch somebody while you watch college football? There's about 100 games on. You're going to watch somebody and chat with other people about games during the NFL Sunday? Or would you rather do it before the games? Would you rather do it after the games? Would definitely love to hear opinions on that. So throw them at me. We'll see. Yeah, listen, if Arch is what everybody thinks he's going to be, then yeah, we'll see a huge difference. Michael, I keep telling my buddy who graduated from South Carolina that as well. I've said it a few times, so I won't go back through the point too much here, but it'll be interesting now that they have expectations. South Carolina's got high expectations. It's different then. Jacob, we've talked about Arkansas a few times. I think it'll be interesting to see how they manage their early season schedule. I think that's going to be huge for them. Coach with his top 5, he agrees with me. Coach, it's good to see you. Good to hear from you too. It's been a while, man. I haven't had a chance to get on here. Coach has been a huge supporter of my channel. That's Mark, calling him Coach. Top 5 is Georgia, LSU, Missouri, Texas, South Carolina. He's sleeping on my Gators a little bit. Giving a lot of love for Garrett Nussmeier and LSU too. Got Missouri. Listen, Coach is very high on Missouri every year, I think, but he's got Missouri at 3, Texas and South Carolina. Why is Georgia above the Crimson Tide? Yeah, I think it's because Gunnar Stockton's back at quarterback and people know more about Gunnar. Also, Georgia is just probably got a little bit more talent right now than Alabama. The media probably feels like it has more answers with Georgia than it does Alabama with Ty Simpson taking over. That would be my answer. Eddie, I'll remember you. Jump back in my comments anytime, man. MSU needs some big changes. Feels that way. It's so hard to win there, man. Starkville, Mississippi. It is so hard to win there. compared to some of the other programs in this conference. It is unbelievable. But I will tell you what hurts them. You know, Kentucky has been a top 20 team several times over the last 5-6 years. Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year. They had Texas on the ropes. Vanderbilt was a top 25 team last year. Mississippi State can have those years. When Dak Prescott was there at quarterback, they got up to number 1 in the country. Dan Mullen was the head coach. I was there when they played Alabama in Tuscaloosa that year. They lost 25-20. Actually, Mississippi and Mississippi State were in the top 4 that year when the playoff rankings first came out. But Mississippi State's been a long time. Been a long time since they were relevant in college football. UGA owns Texas. Oklahoma's going to have a breakout year. Texas upsets Ohio State game 1. We'll see. Listen, if Arch Manning is who we think he's going to be, okay. Beat Ohio State. Let's see it. Facts and the Big Ten will spend the rest of the year crying about the SEC. We'll see, Michael. We'll see. Tennessee over Oklahoma is wild. Yeah, hey, the media made this poll. We'll see. They get it wrong most years with their pick to win the conference. I don't remember the stats, but almost every year the media pick is wrong. And listen, it's not just the media that gets it wrong. It's most of the general public as well. So, Manning overhyped, Slow says. Man, Arch Manning's got a lot of expectations on him for a guy who hasn't started many college football games. I think Tennessee could be down. We'll see. Josh Heupel obviously always has a great offense. Arkansas's 3-5 before Bobby Petrino takes over. Man, is Arkansas ready to go back to that well with Bobby Petrino? Oh man. Oh gosh. I still see the neck brace, you know. I don't know if Arkansas is ready for that one. Is the world ready for that? We'll talk about the Big Ten soon, Trucker. Not today. We'll talk about that Iowa offense, man. How about that? I'll put up a picture of paint drying, and I'll put video of the Iowa offense up side by side, and we'll let people vote which one's more interesting. Which team from 9 to 16 has the opportunity to sneak into the top 5 of the SEC? It's Missouri with the schedule, Coach. And I think that may be where you're going with that, but I think it's Missouri based on their schedule. I think based off of talent, it's Oklahoma. Remember the 11 and 10 win seasons? Absolutely. I didn't say Bobby Petrino couldn't coach. He can coach. I just don't know if they're ready to go back to the way that ended. I just don't know if they're ready for that. They just win. They win. Listen, I'm not hating on Iowa. They do win a lot of games. They just don't win any games that matter that much. They haven't they haven't been in the playoff, you know? I mean, they're sign up right now, 8 wins probably. You don't have to tell me. Just throw me in the future. You know, we're talking about an Iowa program with the current coaching staff, and you said Iowa went 8-4. I'd say, yeah, that sounds about right. I don't need to know anything else. That's probably where they're going to be. Kentucky Wildcats over the Indiana Hoosiers. Oh man, we'll see if Indiana is still back like they were last year. Do you think South Carolina could beat Alabama this year? Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about a top 15 team, right? They had them beat last year. They got the onside kick and completely mismanaged the last minute of the clock. Ben, I don't know if you're a South Carolina fan, but they got the onside kick after they went for 2 and missed it because I think the final score was 27-25. They get the onside kick, and then the offense just died. I felt like they completely mismanaged the clock. Then they threw like a Hail Mary when I didn't think they even needed to yet. The end of that game was weird to me after South Carolina got the onside kick. Sure. Could they beat them? Sure. If you're asking me, yeah. I mean, they get them in Columbia. I do think South Carolina is probably going to have more of a struggle this year because of the expectations. I've talked about that a little bit on this video, but it is different when you don't have the national expectations. Now all of a sudden you do if you're South Carolina. Now all of a sudden people are paying attention. Shane Beamer is going to have to deal with that. Lenore Sellers is going to have to deal with that. Look, if you look, I'm not taking anything away from the Gamecocks, and I've talked about this a little bit, so I'll be more brief than I was earlier. But look at the games they won down the stretch last year. They beat an Oklahoma team who was not as good as what we thought they were going to be. Now, they beat A&M when they were good. A&M was a pretty good team at this point. They won at Vandy. And I know Vandy had beaten Alabama. They had given Texas a tough game. They're still Vandy. They're better than they used to be. They still beat them, right? Then they beat Missouri, Wofford. The Clemson game, to me, was the first time they had any real pressure as far as playoff or anything that really was on the line for South Carolina, okay? So, I don't know. We'll see. Now, I'll play devil's advocate on myself. I will absolutely say devil's advocate on myself, play it on myself. They could have beaten LSU. That game was wild. There were some officiating issues there. Game day was at that game. And I think the whole country was like, why is College Game Day here? Well, it made sense. It actually made sense why they were there. Because those South Carolina ended up being almost a playoff team. And then the Alabama game. I mean, they could have won both those games. So if you give them both of those, this was a one-loss team last year. So you could make that argument. If you want to make the argument that South Carolina could have won every game but the Ole Miss game last year, you're not going to get an argument from me. But now the expectations are there. Those 6 wins down the stretch, the only one that had pressure was Clemson. That was the first time they were kind of in the playoff mix. The first time that they were really playing for something. I think it's going to be different this year. I really do. They should beat Virginia Tech. I think that game's in Atlanta. They should beat Virginia Tech. They're going to beat South Carolina State. Vanderbilt, we'll find out a lot. We'll find out a lot when they play Vanderbilt. It's in Columbia. LSU's going to beat Clemson. Comment. Be interesting. Look, Clemson's got a lot to prove, don't they? They've got a lot to prove, man. I do not, David. This is not my poll. This is not my ranking. This is the media ranking. This is from the end of SEC Media Days. I have actually said a lot of good things about Missouri on here and believe with their schedule that they are going to surprise some people. Yes. That's why I left the title on there. This is the media poll. We're talking about the media poll. That is exactly what we're doing. Clemson 0-3, yeah, I mean, absolutely. They lost to South Carolina. They lost to Georgia last year. Absolutely. Record prediction for South Carolina. Yeah. I want to get into predictions a little bit later, but I would say that I could see them losing. I mean, would it be such a bad thing if they went 8-4? I don't want South Carolina fans to yell at me, but I think they have a pretty manageable schedule. But do I think they're going to win at LSU? I don't know. Maybe. Do I think they're going to beat Alabama and Oklahoma? Win at Ole Miss? I mean, I don't know. I'll tell you what really helps them. Texas isn't on this schedule. There's no Texas on this schedule. There's no Georgia on this schedule. Where Florida's playing both of those teams. Florida and South Carolina are both those kind of up-and-coming teams where people are like, I don't know. I don't know if they're ready. Well, Florida's got Texas and Georgia. South Carolina didn't play either one of those teams. They do play Alabama. They do play LSU. Florida also goes to LSU. So out of the up-and-comers, South Carolina's got the favorable schedule for sure. Reading the comments here, Missouri's going to be way higher. Yeah, Avery, I think so. Vandy over Arkansas. Auburn's up-and-coming. Florida beats Georgia. We'll see. I think 9-3 for South Carolina is pretty realistic. Yeah, that's where they were last year. Midwest is asking about Georgia's schedule. I believe, probably not Mississippi State, probably the Georgia Bulldogs here. I think obviously they at least don't play Clemson to begin the year, which they handled that one pretty easily last year. I don't know if they want to do it again. But Tennessee is their first road game, and it feels like the Vols are still going to be figuring it out without Nico. If I had to play Tennessee, I'd want to play them early. So I think that works out. And then they get Alabama and Texas at home. I mean, both those games are in Athens. If I have to play those teams, I'd much rather play them in Athens, Georgia, than in Austin, Texas, or in Bryant-Denny. Auburn, who knows, right? I mean, you could flip a coin on Auburn every year. Who knows where they're going to be at that point? Is Hugh Freeze going to be looking for a job by that point, or are they going to be rolling? Who knows? Who knows with Jackson Arnold? That Jordan Hare is always a tough place to play. But if you can get through Alabama and Tennessee, and there is a break between those games, you would think they should be better than Kentucky, Auburn, and Ole Miss. Now, Florida had them last year in a pretty tough spot, even without DJ Lagway. Florida had no passing game once Lagway went down. Absolutely none. None. It was embarrassing how bad the Florida backup quarterback situation was last year. But that's the big one you got to circle, right? I mean, obviously Texas, November 15th, everybody will be watching it. But if you're trying to get to that point and be nationally relevant, I think Florida is. I think Alabama's going to be tough, sure. But I think Florida will have pulled it together. So Alabama and Florida and Texas, those three are probably the ones that you're worried about. Georgia Tech played them tough. They went like 6 overtimes last year. Haynes King is back. I could absolutely see Georgia Tech building on that and making a game there. But Georgia's so loaded, man. That I would have them at the top of the SEC for sure. They're the team to beat. Yeah, Melissa's throwing the schedule up. Thank you, Melissa. That's Georgia's schedule right there. We'll see. Look, as a Florida fan, I wouldn't complain if Georgia fell off a little bit, but they're rolling, man. They're rolling, obviously. SEC will have everyone in a bowl game except Kentucky and Mississippi State. It's possible. Zeth, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of love for Kentucky in this media poll, was there? I'm not hating on them. I think they've plateaued under Mark Stoops, but I'm not hating on them. Kirby Cooking, absolutely. I don't know what to think. I don't know that anybody knows what to think about Tennessee. I really don't. Without Nico, it's crazy. Without Nico, I think we're all wondering. I think the kid from App State's good, but we'll see how he handles the rigors of the SEC. Where would Clemson be in this list if they were in the SEC? Ooh, that's a good question. Probably third, right? They'd probably be third. I think they'd probably third. Maybe fourth. Or I could see them as low as, I don't know, because South Carolina beat them last year. You could argue that they'd be 6. I think you could argue as low as 6, but I think you could argue as high as 3 for Clemson. I wouldn't put them over Texas or Georgia. Best team in the country. I'm reading the comments here. Yeah, look, I think Calzada could win games for Kentucky. I mean, he's beaten Alabama before. He was at A&M when he did it, but I don't know about Vandy. They only beat Alabama, really. Yeah, but it was more than that. They played Texas tough. They beat Auburn. They beat Georgia Tech in a bowl game. I don't know. They beat Virginia Tech, too. Is because unlike Nico, Joey. Yeah, you're a fan of Joey Aguilar? He isn't afraid to throw deep and has the running ability. Yeah, I mean, Nico was probably overrated. I made a video about that on my channel previously when he was, I think before he had actually committed to UCLA. All right, guys. I have been live for a couple hours here. I have enjoyed getting back into this. Really had this thing rolling in college basketball season. We're going to do that this year too. I mean, I love doing daily bracketology in college basketball, but huge football fan. Going to get into college football in the NFL. Going to do this daily show. Certainly hope you will follow me as I try to grow this channel. I want to get I've set it up where I can go live on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're going to try to do it all. I've got a little bit of growing to do on those channels since I just started them. But TikTok is something that is still fairly new for me too. Had it rolling during the spring and winter and spring and want to get back into it. So I hope you'll follow me. We'll talk about the Big Ten tomorrow. we'll get into the Big Ten. I'll pull up the media standings for that, and we'll talk about some of these teams. So I really appreciate everybody and their support, jumping in and talking, and hope to see you guys around then.